Welcome back. Virginia has now joined other states in cracking down on cell phones in the classroom. Governor Glenn Youngkin issued an executive order earlier this week requiring the Virginia Department of Education to come up with policy guidance for creating a phone-free learning environment that would go into effect at the beginning of the next calendar year.
Youngkin also announced plans to invest $500,000 to support this effort, which he says is both a mental health and a safety issue.
For more on this, we are joined by family and clinical psychologist Dr. Jennifer Hartstein. Dr. Hartstein, good morning. Always great to have you here. So first, as a mental health professional, what are some of your initial thoughts? Just seeing some state governments get so hands-on with this issue, what can you tell us about how much phones do interfere with kids' learning?
Well, they interfere a lot. Think about what it does for adults, right? They're major distractions. So when we're in a school setting, even if the phone is on silent, kids are often checking them, looking at them. And the truth of the matter is we can't multitask. We task switch. So kids are looking at their phone and then paying attention in class. So what are they missing in that educational process that they need to build greater skills over time?
I mean, clearly kids are growing up in a different world than the previous generation did. Some kids are using artificial intelligence to write their homework. Not great, but they're doing it. Technology is just part of our minute-to-minute existence. So how do we balance that? This is part of our lives right now. It feels like you could be going against the tide in some ways, right?
Well, I think you used the key word here, Joe, which is balance, right? I think what we have not done a great job of is teaching that overall. And I think the bans are a kind of way to move back to the other side, but ultimately we're going to have to settle in the middle because we are moving towards more and more and more tech. Homework is on. They find out that their homework assignments are online, all of these things. So like, where does that end? So I think the balance piece of it is where we're ultimately going to need the most, like the most leverage and to lean into the most.
The other thing, of course, is how this impacts the youth mental health crisis. That was even mentioned in this particular executive order. Do you think these anti-phone policies make a difference in that regard to kids' development, happiness, these feelings of loneliness? How can this help?
I think that we don't know yet what the difference will be, but I do think we have to make some changes, right? We know that there is a youth mental health crisis. We know that much of it aligns with the influence of social media and how much we're living life out loud and how kids are not equipped to handle that. Adults are not equipped to handle that, let's be honest, right? So how are we expecting kind of developing brains to do that? So again, what are we teaching? It goes back to, I think, what are we teaching at home? What are we teaching in schools? How are we teaching how to interpret all of these things so that we can teach kids to really understand and navigate it better, because it's not going to go away. So we need to learn how to live with it, not against it.
We talked about it a moment ago, balance. Easier said than done. I mean, what are some ways families and schools can actually find that healthy balance when it comes to phone use among kids?
I think that this is the lesson we're all trying to figure out. So I think some of it is understanding and identifying what are the rules in your own home as the adults and what are the limits you have for yourself and how are you modeling that. That starts with you as the adult, and we teach our kids that. That can translate into schools. Some teachers use phones within the educational process. How are we building it in to teach where it's helpful and to teach where it's harmful? And I think ultimately, you guys, the key thing here is, are we talking to our kids about what they're looking at? So are we asking them to show us? Are we teaching them what's healthy, what's unhealthy? We just kind of hand them computers and they have them in their pocket and expect them to know what to do. We wouldn't hand them car keys. So let's teach them responsible ways to utilize that technology so that they don't have all of these mental health issues moving forward.
Dr. Jennifer Hartstein, we appreciate you as always. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys.
Coming up.